Xtuple. I'm going to talk a little bit about the architecture of Xtuple in general, just to give people an orientation there. Talk about our core development tools, and then talk about how most of you are not going to do core development. You're going to do scripting, and why. And then give an example of the type of script that I think most people will want to use most of the time. And that's pretty much all we're going to be able to do here in a 35-minute presentation. So, and I will get sort of technical today, but hopefully not terribly technical. What I'm hoping to do is give people enough information with a specific example that you'll be able to go out and modify that example and be productive yourselves really quickly here, doing the sort of thing that most people would want to do with scripting and customizing. So we're going to start here with a little talk about Xtuple architecture. And this, of course, is sort of evolving, but what we have always been up to now is and we continue to be, is a client-server type of system where we have a single database that all of the users on the system attach to or connect to, and each of those users is running a client on their local machine. So that we have distributed clients and a shared database. The database is a we use all open source tools to build the app. So the database is a Postgres database. The Postgres is referred to as the world's most powerful open source database. It's available for free, and you can go to postgresql.org to download it and learn more about it. It has a very powerful procedural language, so we use a lot of the we use PGSQL to write functions at the database level, and a lot of the business logic is actually in the database itself in the form of stored procedures. At the client level, the client tools are built in C++, and I mentioned JavaScript. The desktop client that we have been developing and distributing up to this point is a client built with in C++ using the Qt framework. It runs on Windows, Mac, and Linux. And you can download that for free from our project site on sourceforge.net, and connect to your Xtuple database. And so we've been developing that client in the Qt framework in C++ for 10 years or so. It's quite a highly developed and mature product. It has significant features that for ERP. But that's been a client that runs natively on the desktop. So it's a more traditional client-server type of application. What we've been doing over the last few years is also now developing a new client. This is our mobile web client, and that's built entirely in JavaScript. So it runs in a browser, and the client is served from a web server that's running a bunch of JavaScript code. There's a number of different JavaScript apps that are part of that, and Node is one, Backbone, and Enyo are all sort of used together to produce a JavaScript client that runs in the browser. And that's our newest product. And I only mention that right now because I'm not actually going to get into any of the anything about that today, about scripting it or even using it or demonstrating it. That will be for another presentation at another time. Today we're going to be talking strictly about the C++ client and Postgres, and how you can develop customizations for those tools. So I'm going to talk for a minute about what are the core development tools. If you visit xtuple.org /developer zone, you'll find a whole lot of information about our development tools, how to create a development environment, tips for reading the code and for developing in C++, and for using Postgres. I can jump over there for a second. Here, this is what the developer zone looks like. And so, the first thing you'll find when you get here is that we sort of give you a choice. When you start to think about customizing or developing for Xtuple, there's two paths that you can take, and you need to decide initially which one of those you want. You can extend Xtuple with scripting, or you can modify the Xtuple source code. It's an open source product, so you can download the source code and view it and modify it and commit it back, and modify the source. So we have, if you dig a little bit further in here, you'll see an overview about doing core development. You'll see an overview of how to develop extensions, which is what I'm mostly going to talk about today. And you'll see links to the library and to specifications. The specifications page gives some examples of things that we've already done. These are all specifications that have been written and developed where the code is complete. This is the complete section. So you can see any of these specs and get a sense for what we do when we write a spec, and how a spec can guide your development. We also have a example spec here that is just a template for anybody who's looking to document a feature, write a specification before doing development. This helps you to sort of think through all of the different aspects of development before you even get started writing any code. It's always a good idea to write your spec first. And so I recommend that if you're going to do any development, that you take a look at this example spec and use this template to help develop your idea before you get started. The other thing that's extremely useful, and it's easy to miss here, is the library. Uh-oh. All right, I hope I'm still online. Scott, are you hearing me?
Sorry, yeah, we're hearing you, BC.
Okay, I wasn't sure that I fell offline there. All right, hold on a minute. Come on, library. There we go. Okay, so here's the library, and there's a lot of really critical information in here. And one of the most important parts is this link right here, the Erp Programmer Reference. If you're going to do any coding at all for Xtuple, whether it's scripting or core development, you're going to want to go here and look at this this programmer reference. It includes a huge amount of critical information, and particularly this list of classes here. This is the key documentation. Everybody always asks, all right, where's the documentation? How do I get started? How do I find out how to program Xtuple? Well, you need to know a certain amount of, we're not here to teach you C++ or JavaScript, but to document the objects that you'll use in when you're doing development in Xtuple, you can come here and you can find key information about the methods that are available for different types of objects and so on. So this is standard C++ and style documentation and JavaScript style documentation about the different functions that you can invoke on various objects and the signals and slots that are available. So this is a critical resource, the programmer reference. You will go here often if you're doing development. I certainly do. Okay. Now, the last thing I want to say about core development is that you probably don't want to do it. There's very few cases where a user or a customer would have to go in and modify the C++ core code for the client or the Postgres code for the server, without making sure that that gets back to us. The problem is that if you start to modify the core code in either the client or the server, you are in fact forking the code at that point, and it becomes and we don't support you anymore. If you make a change to the client and you compile it, you're no longer on the core code or on an approved extuple version, and it's quite possible that you will be unable to run updates in the future that we provide. And we do updates very regularly. We release dot number updates 3 or 4 times a year, and very frequently are releasing smaller tweaks and patches and bug fixes. So it's pretty essential as an extuple user that you maintain your core compatibility with the extuple canonical version, so that you can do those updates and apply them. So even though we are open source and we do allow core development, we don't recommend it. If you want to be a core developer, you can, but there's a process for getting those changes incorporated back into the extuple core, so that you don't end up on a fork of extuple, and you would want to follow that process, which is documented in the developer zone for the core code stuff. Now, on the other hand, scripting is the way to go, and we try to make that as easy as possible. We have actually an embedded design tool in the application that allows you to do just about everything you would need to do to write code that will extend and modify extuple right from within the application. I'm going to show that really quickly here. Get to just in case anybody has not seen this. Here is where you would go to modify extuple from within. We'll talk about the debugger in a minute. All right, so here it is. So I'm in the extuple client. I'm in version 4.3.0 RC. This is we are very close to the release of 4.3.0. And so you go to the system menu and you go to design, and you can see all of the elements that you can change and extend from within extuple. So you can modify, you can create and modify reports. You can create and modify MetaSQL statements. MetaSQL is a sort of programming-oriented SQL modification or SQL language that we support, and we have resources to describe it. But it's used extensively throughout extuple, and I'll demonstrate a little bit of that today. You can create new screens. You can write scripts for your new screens, or you can write scripts that modify existing screens. You can create custom commands, which is essentially new menu items, and you can view and create packages. Packages are screens, scripts, MetaSQL statements, reports, and other things that have been wrapped together and then can be installed with our updater application. So packages are really useful, and I'll talk briefly about packages sort of at the end today after I've demonstrated how to do the scripting. All right, so that's where you find it. So as I said, you can modify existing components in extuple using the embedded tools. You can modify scripts, MetaSQL, reports, and so on. And you can make completely new ones. You can, there's sort of whatever you can imagine you can do. So if you have a need for a new interface screen, you can create the screen, throw some widgets on there, and write the script, and have a totally new screen within extuple that does whatever you want. You can also then put that in a package and use the installer to install it wherever you want. So that saves you time. If you're developing in a pilot and then you want to apply the package to your production database, packages are a helpful way to make sure that you have all the components and that you install them the same way in the same place every time. And I say here displays and screens. Actually, that should be displays and windows, because there is a difference, and I'm going to talk about that. These are the two types of screens that you can create in Xtuple, and they're slightly different, and they're created in a slightly different way, and they are both useful. And in a lot of ways, I think displays are the ones that most people don't realize you can make, and how easy they are to make, and how useful they can be. So that's actually what my example is going to be today. Is going to be demonstrating how to make a display, and what you can do with that, and how powerful that can be. A display screen is really just a list. So it's a way to take a query and display it in Xtuple, and it allows you to easily apply filters on that. So if you say create a display that just lists all the items in the system, you can have a set of filters on the top of the screen that allows you to select just the manufactured items or manufactured items of a certain class, and so on. You can create any kind of set of filters that you want, and narrow down that list, filter it down so that you can imagine that can be very useful. You can, if there's not a display for the thing that you want, we have displays already for most of the main object types in Xtuple. But if you have some new component or some new type of thing that you want to create a display for, you write the query and you create a display screen, and you can create your filters for it, and it's very handy. It's just a way to get at data very quickly. And you can even write scripting code that will allow you to manipulate objects in a display, like open them for editing or alter them in some way. So it's not purely for showing a list. You can actually do things there as well, but primarily it's meant for showing lists of things and manipulating lists. The other type of screen is what I'll call a window, and this is the type of screen where you're primarily going to have a lot of widgets, and you're going to do things more than view things on a window. So an example I have is a screen called Quick Relocate, which is a screen with just two fields in it. One field is a lot serial location number, and one field. The first field is a lot serial number, or lot number, or a serial number, and the second field is a location number. And so you enter a lot number and a location number, and you click a button called Post, and it moves items in the system to that new location. So that's a very easy to design screen with just two fields and a button on it, but it could provide a lot of functionality. We actually developed that for a customer, and they find it extremely useful. So sometimes a screen with 3 elements on it can really do a lot of work for you. All right. So we're going to build a display today. We're going to go through I've already built it, but we're going to go through the steps and show you the different parts of a display so that you can see how to do this. Again, displays are a little bit mysterious. I think people doing scripting don't realize that you can make these pretty easily and how powerful they can be. So we're going to write a display today for what we'll call the comment console. The purpose of the display is to show a list of comments in the system. Throughout Xtuple on different types of pages, you have the ability to enter comments. So when you're creating a sales order, you might enter comments. When you're defining an item, you might have comments on the item. The comments are used in incidents. All throughout the system, there are comments. And comments are an interesting type of object because they have all comments have a date stamp on them. They all have a user associated with them, and again they're throughout the system. So they're kind of a neat thing to use to look at to see what kinds of objects you can, what the different ways you can filter them, and how you might use that object in different ways. So the first thing you need to do when you're going to create a display is you need a query. And I'm going to jump over here to my query. All right, so not a simple or elegant query here, I have to admit. The comment query is kind of big, but the point is that you're going to see you're going to see comments from all the different types of entities in the system. So this query, it's all from one table. There's a comment table and a comment type table. So everything from there, we're just querying two tables, but we're going to format that information according to the different types of comments by comment source. So we'll get, we don't need to explain this query too much, but just realize that when you're writing a display, the first thing you need is a query. And you can test this query in Xtuple before you run it. You want to use pgadmin for that. So a very handy tool in doing development in Xtuple is pgadmin. You want to connect to your databases. And here we are in the database. So we'll open that up. So if you just do, select star from comment, you get the whole list of things from comment. And if you do select star from comment and comment type, figure out how to join that. Let's see. There we go. There we are. Oh, no. There we go. No vowels. Okay. So that's the basic query right there. Is we're joining comment and comment type, and you can see all of the different fields that you get there. We get 2,662 rows are generated by that query. So we're going to create a display that will show us this result set and then allow us to filter it. And we can see what we can do with that. All right. The next piece that you need to know about is this piece here, Init menu. Some of you, anybody who's done some scripting already in Xtuple probably knows about Init menu. If you don't, this is magic right here. The Init menu script is run automatically by the app when it initializes. And so, if you have an init menu script in the scripts directory, when you start up the client, it runs that script, and this is the script you use to put new commands into the menu system. So the code in here is looking at main window, which is the GUI client window itself, the one the window that generates the menu. It's finding the menu object that we want to modify. In this case, we're looking in the CRM menu, and then in the reports submenu in there. We're going to add a new action inside of that menu. It's called Comment Console, and we're saying when the user clicks on Comment Console, they're going to initialize this action, and here's what it does. It's going to fire off a new display, which calls this script. This is what's interesting about displays. If you were creating an init menu file for a window instead of a display, this would say toolbox new window, and it would give the name of a UI file. In the case of a display, it's you call new display, and you give it the name of a script. And you don't need to create a new UI file if you are creating a display. The display class is the UI. It contains all the information needed to build the window, build the row of buttons on the top of the window, and all the controls that you need are inside of that display class. So this is the sort of the trick here. Instead of calling toolbox.newWindow, you call toolbox.newDisplay, and you call the script that you want to that's controlling what's going to appear inside of the display. So you know, this is sort of the trick here that again, a lot of people don't know about this method, don't realize that you can create new windows in Extuple without defining any kind of a UI file. You just create a script, and I'll show you what's in that script in a moment. So here, we'll jump back over to my client, and I'll show you where that is. So we've gone in here, and where's this? Comment console, script, init menu. Okay, so here's the init menu file. This is the same one that I was just editing that creates this new display. So I've got the init menu file in here in the scripts directory, and I have the display file as well, the script for the display comment consoles in here. So to add a to work in this list scripts window here, let me jump back here to system. So okay, once again, we're here in the Extuple client. We're going to, I'll show you the process of adding a script. So we go system, design, scripts. You would click new, give it a name. So if it's an init menu file, it has to be called init menu. You don't actually put the .js in the name, so just init menu, and then you import the script. So there's my script, and there it is. So I would save that, and that's how you add a script to Extuple using the tools here. You can also edit in this window. So you could write the script in here, but I prefer to generally work outside of Extuple and then import. That way I have copies of it in multiple places, and it's sort of easier to work, more reliable. All right, so I'm going to close that because I already have one. And I'm going to close. Actually, I'm going to jump back over here to my text editor. All right, so now we're going to look at the script that I'm calling in this new display. So not a lot in here. This is actually a pretty straightforward script. The first line in the script that I have here is debugger. So that you put that in the top of any script if you want to invoke the Extuple debugger. And you know, you can always comment it out when you're done with it. But when you're doing development, it's handy to have the debugger line at the top of your script. So here I'll show you what that does. Close that. So I told you we have the init menu script that adds my display to the CRM reports menu. So this is the result. Init menu put this comment console menu item in CRM reports. And when I click on that, it launches the debugger because I've got my debugger line in the script. And this is very handy. If you have any errors at all, they will show up right here. And this is very helpful when you're trying to figure out why your script doesn't work. You can start up the debugger and look there. But you go ahead and start it. Okay, and so this is the result of my script, the comment console display. And I was talking about sort of what displays come with out of the box. You don't have to create a UI file or do anything to add the basic parts of a display screen. So the close button, query button, schedule, preview, print, and all the filtering mechanisms are already coded into the display class, and so it saves you a lot of time and trouble, and gives you this uniform, clean look to build a new display screen. The other part of the display that's standard is the list. The only thing that you need to do when you are creating a display, the minimum things you need to do are define the columns that you want to put into the display, and define whatever query parameters, not query parameters, the filter parameters you want to be available on the screen. So if you, here I've got start date, end date, source, user, and type are the different parameters that I've written into the script so that they will appear on this screen. So I'm going to jump back to my script and show you how that was done. All right, so some standard things in a display. It has a window title. So you saw that comment console is the window title. It has a list label. That is this part right here. So comments is the label for the list that's going to appear here. It has a report name. So all displays have a link to print a report. You have to create a report definition for it, which I actually haven't done yet. But the standard part of a display screen is to have a print button that links to your report. If you want, you can hide the print button if you're not going to go to the trouble to create a printable report definition. And then here's the other key thing is the set MetaSQL options. So this tells the display what query you're going to run to generate the list that goes here. So I showed you earlier, this is our query, comment console detail, and that gets loaded in Xtuple as well. So here I'm just referencing it. I'm going to jump back to the client and show you how I got that in there. So that's once again system design MetaSQL statements. All right, so here's the list of MetaSQL statements, and I just added that by going here, opening it, and adding it. So I would select it, resources, comment console detail MQL. So the query that I wrote and tested in PG admin, I save it as an MQL file and then I add it to the MetaSQL list by going through the design MetaSQL editor screen. So I already have done that, and it's in here, comment console somewhere. Comment console details. So yeah, I've already added it in here. This is the same query. So that's the query that I'm referencing in my script. MetaSQL options, comment console detail. The next item here is set parameter widget visible true. So you on a display screen you can opt to not use the parameter widget. I find, in most cases you would want to use the parameter widget. So if you say it's that set at visible equals true, then That gives you this set of filters here. If you hide it, then you don't see this filter section, and you don't see any of the options here. You just get the close and query button and the list. But if you set the parameter widget true, you get to add all the options that you want for filtering the list. All right. These are the widgets. I mean, these are the particular filters in the widget. So these relate to elements in the MetaSQL. So this is a there's a lot of synergy between the script code here, especially in this part, and the MetaSQL. So here we're saying we're going to add a widget. We're going to append a parameter to the parameter widget called start date. That's what you see here. And so we're defining it here. We're saying start date is it's going to reference the MetaSQL field called start date, and it's going to insert a widget here of the type date. So parameter widget date is the type of widget that it's going to be, and this is the default value. It's going to, as a default, it's going to insert the current date from the database. So that's when you open this, you see there's start date and today's date to give you a date range. So if we change that and hit query, we'll see some results down here. Now that we should look over here in the MetaSQL for a minute and see where that appears. So here in the MetaSQL, here we go. We have in the where clause, the date fields are passed to the where clause in the form of the query at runtime, and will affect the results. So we're saying send a variable from the display screen called start date and insert it at this point in the where clause, and that will filter the query result. So back to the script. So we have a few of those different MetaSQL variables in the query. We've got a start date, end date, source, user ID, comment type, and those are all defined here as parameters that the user can manipulate on the display screen. So we have start date, end date, source, user, and type, because we've added lines to the script here, those show up here as optional parameters. So we have a start date, end date, source, user, and type parameters here all of which you can use to narrow the results on your list. You call the apply default filter set. That's just kind of standard. And then the last thing that you need to do is just say what columns do you want to display in your list. And so you add a variable called list here, which grabs the list object on the window. This part here of the screen is always the list object. So you're assigning the list object from the screen to a variable called list. And then you're going to modify that list by adding columns and giving it some information. So this is the label for the column, the date here, etc. Date, comment type, text, source, user details, points. We'll get into points maybe. So you give it the label, you give it a width. What's the one? Oh, that's the alignment type. So one is, I believe, align left. Yep. True is is this column displayed by default when the window's open, or is it hidden? And then the last argument here is what's the name of the column in the query that should be displayed in that column on the screen. So comment date from the query here. Here's our select comment date in the MetaSQL. So comment date gets put into this column, comment type, text, and so on. So that's the relationship between the MetaSQL and the columns on the display. You just pull the column from the MetaSQL directly into the display, and it will show there. So that's the basics of creating a display. Not terribly complicated to do. You have all of the all the code you need to script is right here for the display itself. You're just, once again, you're just setting some basic information about the whole screen. You know, what's the title, what MetaSQL file are you going to use to determine the query for the screen, what parameter widget filters do you want to add, and what columns do you want to display. These three little sections here can generate a very powerful and useful screen within Xtuple to show whatever kind of information you want. And I have down here, some to-dos, which are other things that you can do with a display, which obviously would make this more complicated. But the option is there. If you're feeling adventurous, you can add right-click menu options so that you could say open any of the objects, right-click on a row in the results, like down here. Right-click on a row, and you could open a parent item. So if this is, here's what is this type of item? This is a customer. This is a customer record. So if I right-clicked here and open parent item, and I had the script written, it would open the customer window with that customer in it. So that makes this screen even more valuable and useful if you start to add some scripted code to connect it to open new windows or to take actions on the different results here. So, if it was if this were a display that was showing shipped orders, you could have a right-click option to close the order, for example. So that's about as much as I wanted to show today. I wanted to show you, I got one more thing, which is the package. So again, here's the parts. We didn't actually use this, so there we go. There's three parts to this display. There's the Init menu file, which is the one that adds the menu item to the menu, Common Console menu item to the CRM reports menu so that you can open it. And this is where you're telling it that you want it to be a display so that you don't have to write a UI file. We have the Common Console script itself, which is what sets the parameters of the display and defines the columns that will be displayed there, and also defines the query that will be run. And then we have the query itself. So there's really three parts to making a display: the init menu, the display script, and the MetaSQL query. If you want to then take those things and put them into a package so that you can install it, instead of having to install each of these three files individually, you could just install the whole thing using the Xtuple updater application. You would create a package out of it. And this is the basics of a package. A package XML file just tells the package what the files are, and so this in where to put them. So you have a little bit of stuff in the package header here. You have to give it an ID. The ID is the name of the folder that the packages are in. That the files are in. So in this case, over here, resources. So all of my files here are in this resources directory, which is what I'm referencing in the package itself, so resources. I give it a name, comment console. When you install a package, it creates a schema in the Postgres database with whatever name you put here. So I'm going to create, when the updater will create a schema called comment console and put all of the information about the package into that schema. I can give it a version, I can put a developer and a description, and the updater equals is the version of the updater that you want to that you are requiring here. So currently the updater is at version 2.2.5. That's the standard updater that we are distributing right now. So 2.2.5 is what you would want to put there. You can put some notes on the package to describe it, to help you remember what it's for. And then you list all of the files that you want the package to install. And so that's the files that we've got here, the MetaSQL, the display script, and the init menu.js file. So that's it for a package. And then you just have to zip it up or tar it using whatever tools you would normally use for that. So you just go here, go to the directory where it is, and do tar czf, give it a name. So I'm calling this comment console.gz, and I'm zipping up everything in the resources directory. Now, obviously, I haven't moved to the proper place yet, but that's the command to create an updater package out of the files in the resources directory. As long as the package.xml file is inside of that resources directory, then the updater application can find all the files and install them for you. So packaging is not terribly hard. That's all there is to it. And we have documentation on all of this stuff, how to create packages, how to, the syntax for various things is all in the developer zone. It's all explained in the section on scripting. All right. So there are probably questions. Again, that's all I wanted to address today. So I hope that you all can use that information, and that there is, that's enough to kind of get started. And I hope that I taught you something that you may not have known, especially when it comes to the display part. All right. So I see Bruce has a question. Could you please put OpenOffice in the full screen slideshow mode? No, I couldn't actually, because when I did that, for some reason, the webinar didn't work. So, are there any other questions? I think Scott can help me.
Well, I could. I'm gonna let's do these polls pretty quickly, and in the meantime, if people think of questions, just enter it in that question box, and we can go from there. How about that? Does that work?
Works for me.
Okay, great. Here we go. So the first one, when you want to customize Xtuple, where should you start? OpenRBT, Xtuple Updater, the internal design tools to create scripts and screens, or PostgreSQL? Okay, about 10 more seconds. And closing the poll. So the answer to that was use the internal design tools to create scripts and screens, and BC showed that at the beginning of the webinar when we opened the the internal tools that you could use. Okay, next one. Scripting allows you to create displays and windows, which is used to find a filter in a list. Which is used to find a filter in a list.
Yeah, it should be find and filter a list.
Find and filter a list, correct, yeah. Okay, 5 more seconds. And most people got that right. The answer to that was displays. Okay, and last one. When you want to wrap your code for easy installation and upgrading, what do? Use Qt Toolbox, spend a lot of time integrating your code into the source, or you can't. You got to put it in a package. About 10 more seconds. And I'm closing the poll. And most everyone got that one right as well. You can't. You got to put it into a package, as we went over. Okay, and let's see. I don't think we have any more questions. And again, if you guys do think of a question, or you kind of want to get help, or find a resource to help you with custom development, please email us here at sales@xtuple.com, and we'd be happy to get that going. Other than that, it looks like there are no more questions. So I thank everybody for attending the webinar, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everybody.